I want to talk briefly about an exchange I had on Twitter with the psychologist Jordan Peterson over the issue of the death penalty. Now, there's kind of an interesting ancient story about the death penalty. It actually is attributed to the fellow named Draco. Now, Draco is the root of the word that we use today, draconian. And Draco was known for giving very severe punishments. He was in charge of administering Roman justice. And he apparently gave the death penalty even for pretty minor offenses, as well as for major offenses. So someone asked him, they go, "Hey, Draco, listen, you give the death penalty for major offenses, but why are you giving it for minor offenses also? It seems somewhat unfair to do that." And Draco goes, "Well, yeah, it is unfair. I'd like to give penalties that are even more severe than the death penalty for more severe offenses, but there are no such penalties to be given. The death penalty is kind of the worst I can do." So this is to me, somewhat black humor type of anecdote. But in any event, the way this exchange with Jordan Peterson began is I saw a post on Twitter by a guy who says, this is Dr. Joel Brown, at Joel Brown, MD. "I still believe the only executioner who's qualified and trustworthy is God. That's my issue with the death penalty. I don't trust corruptible systems," he means the state, "or people to permanently end any human's life, unborn or elderly. Your first and final breath should be determined by God alone." So I reacted to that and said, I've long supported the death penalty because I believe those who deliberately and callously take the lives of other people thereby forfeit their own right to life. And I said, I still believe that. Even so, I said, this post has got me thinking ... And then Jordan Peterson weighs in on behalf of Joel Brown, and he goes, "The state should never have that much power. That does not mean that no crimes are worthy of death. It just means that the power of the state also has to be kept in check." So now this, I think, is a really important point, and it's a point that you don't often hear about the death penalty. You often hear the kind of liberal arguments, which are kind of unconvincing, about the fact that it's a form of murder for the state to take life. No, what Jordan Peterson is getting at, and this other fellow, Dr. Joel Brown, is they're saying, look, we're living in an era where we rightfully distrust many of the institutions of power. We've learned to distrust some of our health institutions, some of our so-called police institutions like the FBI, and most of all, we distrust the motives of the state. We no longer believe that the state is going to adjudicate these cases fairly, make an honest judgment about what happened, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. We've even seen cases where the wrong guy has been executed and DNA evidence has subsequently exonerated them. So based upon this, the idea here, and I like the way that Dr. Joel Brown grounds his argument theologically. In fact, he went on to make a comment both to Jordan Peterson and me, and he goes, "Thanks for sharing, Dinesh. I genuinely believe that God shares your view on the seriousness of murder. We see this in Scripture. But one that puzzles me was the case of Cain." This is a very interesting reference here. "Cain murdered Abel, and God chose to let him live with a curse and even protected him from retaliation." We see this, Debbie and I actually reading the first books of the Bible as we make our way through the Bible. And we just read this a couple of weeks ago, the story of Cain and Abel. So I offer these thoughts not as a way to, I don't have a conclusive new position on the death penalty, but it's just good stuff for us to think about as we evaluate old principles, but apply them to the new situation in which we live now.